Hello and welcome to Climbing Daily. On today's show we have the first part of a two-part special interview with author and climber Simon McCartney. He won the Boardman Tasker Award and the Banff Mountain Book Festival Award with his book The Bond. On today's show he takes us through his climbs, his groundbreaking climbs on Mount Huntington and the Eiger.
These days I'm a retired adventurer. I live in Hong Kong where I run my own business. I live between here and Australia. I started climbing because of my father. He got me into it when I was 11 or 12 years old. We would go to Scotland every summer and climb in the northwest of the country. And I was rock climbing by the time I was 13 because of him. It was my first trip to Llanberis that really explained to me what climbing was all about. Deliberate management of risk, and that's what's always inspired me to this day in alpine climbing, is that if there's no risk, then there's no point. My father bought me a book written by Chris Bonington, and it was just after he'd become famous because he'd made the first British ascent of the Eiger. And that became my total ambition. I had to climb the Eiger too, and one season in the Alps led to another. And I was very lucky. I hooked up with a guy called Dave Wilkinson, who was much more experienced than me. And he really showed me a whole different level of climbing. I met this American called Jack Roberts in the Bar National at the end of the season, and he persuaded me that I shouldn't come back to Chamonix. I should go with him to Alaska because it was much less explored, it was bigger, and we could make major ascents on whole faces. Why Mount Huntington? It appeared on the cover of Mountain 40. This amazing looking thing, that was to be our Eiger, our first ascent. 5,700 foot of like a shriek of ice in the sky. It was supposed to be very dangerous, but I was only 22. I really didn't listen too much to anybody giving me advice about things being dangerous or not. I just want to go and climb it. The route up the north face of Mount Huntington, there's really only one way up the north face of Mount Huntington. I'm convinced. There's just a continuous wall of seracs above this difficult rock band, and there's just one spot where you can get around them, and I can't imagine any other way of doing so. Even that is severely threatened by the seracs. That leads you pretty much straight up the middle of the face. We wanted to make sure that we climbed the north face direct on the first attempt. We didn't want anybody coming along later. This is how we thought, I don't want some smart person coming along and claiming they'd straighten the route out, they'd done the direct. So we went straight up the middle. There's a hanging glacier called the Ramp. It's like a long diagonal hanging glacier which has overhanging seracs in it, but they're pretty stable. And we headed for that, and it led us directly to the summit, but with much harder ice climbing than we had thought. On the way down, we discovered we'd made the most stupid error. We arrived in a perfectly good aircraft. We could have flown around the mountain and learnt many things about it, i.e. that our plan to climb down the French Ridge was idiotic. There's no way that that's possible. And we would have known that before we started, but we found out on the summit that our descent route was a complete no-go. And we went down the west face, down the Harvard route. Thank God there was some fixed equipment on it, some fixed ropes that we could dig out of the ice, because we lost our ropes on the first big rappel over the nose roof. And the ropes got hooked around a flake, and we wound up with 80 foot of one piece of rope left. And bits of washing line that we could knot together. There was Japanese fixed rope. Long story short, we spent 4 days climbing the mountain and 6 days getting back to our campsite, so it was a 10-day round trip. I think that a competent party using modern equipment could probably climb the north face of Mount Huntington in a day now. But I strongly advise them not to try, at least not until I'm dead. I'd feel terrible if someone got killed making a second ascent. It's absolutely pointless to make a second ascent of something so dangerous as that. When I got home in 1978, I realised that it was now or never with the north face of the Eiger, and that a winter ascent would be the only thing that'll do. It wouldn't be the first British ascent because Joe Tasker and Dick Wrench already done that, but it would be a British ascent. So Smiler, Cuthbertson, me, Bill Barker and Howard Lancashire got together, and we had a go. But we broke all of our ice axes. The curvers that we were using, as you take them out of the ice, the tips would break off. And we wound up in a terrible situation. We got hooked up with Stevie Haston and Victor Saunders. After 10 days, we got no further than the White Spider, and we wound up getting helicoptered off it which was embarrassing, but also extremely exciting. I'd almost recommend getting helicoptered off the White Spider as some new risk sport. I went back in the same winter with Chris Hoyland, and I knew the way so well, and we had pretty good weather, and we got up it very quickly in 3 days. And it was a fabulous end to my Eiger odyssey. But then what to do next?
Make sure you watch tomorrow's show when Simon takes us through the climb that almost cost him his life. For more information on the book, make sure you click on the link below. Thanks for watching. See you soon.